The Voyager drifted through the vast expanse of uncharted space, its sleek hull gleaming faintly under the light of distant stars. It was humanity's first vessel capable of faster-than-light travel, the culmination of centuries of science, dreams, and relentless determination. To the crew aboard, the silence of space was both beautiful and unnerving, an endless void that promised both discovery and danger. Captain Elena Cross stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back as she stared out of the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly, glittering like scattered jewels in the velvet black. Her mind was a storm of thoughts, though she kept her face calm and composed. Leadership demanded it. She knew every crew member on this ship looked to her for guidance, and she refused to betray the trepidation she felt. "Captain," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Commander James Voss, her second in command, his tone sharp with a mix of curiosity and concern. "We're picking up an anomaly on the long-range scanners, energy readings off the charts." She turned, her dark brows knitting together. "Details?" Voss gestured to the holographic console that hovered before him. With a few quick movements of his hands, he pulled up the data for everyone on the bridge to see. A shimmering field of numbers and graphs materialized in the air, accompanied by a faint hum. "It's not a natural phenomenon," he explained. "The readings are too structured. There's a clear pattern to the energy spikes, and, He hesitated, his lips tightening. "And what, Commander?" Elena prompted, her tone patient but firm. Voss hesitated for only a moment before continuing. "Its scale is massive, Captain. Whatever it is, it's several kilometers in diameter and appears to be stationary." The bridge fell into a tense silence. The crew exchanged glances, their unease evident. This was what they had come for, exploration, the unknown. But it was one thing to imagine it back on Earth, and quite another to encounter it face to face in the depths of space. "Bring us closer," Elena said finally, her voice cutting through the quiet. "Slow approach. I want continuous scans and full analysis of whatever this is. Keep shields up, but do not arm weapons unless I give the order." "Aye, Captain," Voss replied, and the bridge buzzed back into activity as the crew set to work. The Voyager adjusted its course, its engines humming faintly as it propelled the ship toward the source of the anomaly. The minutes stretched into an hour, and with each passing moment the anticipation on the bridge grew thicker. As they closed the distance, the object came into view. It was a ring, vast and majestic, floating in the void like a jewel set against the stars. Its surface shimmered with a metallic sheen, intricate patterns etched into its structure, glowing faintly with energy. The ring's design was unmistakably artificial, but it was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. "My God," whispered Ensign Parker, the youngest member of the crew. He was standing at his station, his wide eyes fixed on the view screen. "It's beautiful." "Beautiful and impossible," Voss muttered, though there was a note of awe in his voice. "That!" Elena's gaze remained fixed on the ring. She felt a strange pull in her chest, a mixture of wonder and unease. "Scan for life signs," she ordered. "Scanning," Voss said. His hands moved swiftly over the controls, and moments later his eyes widened. "Captain, I'm picking up life signs. Dozens of them." "Life signs? Here?" Elena asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. "Yes," Voss confirmed. "And there's more. The scans indicate humanoid biology, nearly identical to our own." A stunned silence settled over the bridge. The implications of Voss's words were staggering. "Are you sure?" Elena pressed, her heart pounding in her chest. "Positive, Captain," Voss replied. "The genetic markers are almost indistinguishable from human DNA. Whoever or whatever they are, they're as close to human as it gets." Elena's mind raced. This wasn't just an anomaly anymore. It was a discovery that could redefine everything humanity knew about its place in the universe. But with that discovery came 1,000 new questions, each more urgent than the last. "Options?" she asked, turning to her crew. "We could send a probe," suggested Lieutenant Diaz, the ship's chief engineer, "gather more data without putting anyone at risk." "Or we could send a team," Voss countered. "If these beings are as human as the scans suggest, they might be expecting us. A probe might be seen as hostile, or worse, cowardly." Elena considered both suggestions, weighing the risks and benefits. Finally, she made her decision. "Prepare a shuttle," she said. "I'll lead an away team myself. Dr. Han, Sergeant Kane, Voss, you're with me. I want a mix of science and security. We're going to meet these beings." "Aye, Captain," Voss said, though his expression betrayed a flicker of apprehension. The bridge buzzed with renewed activity as the orders were carried out. Within the hour, the shuttle was ready, a small but sturdy craft designed for short-range missions. Elena and her team suited up, their faces set with determination and tension.
As the shuttle departed the Voyager and approached the ring, the massive structure seemed to come alive. The patterns on its surface began to pulse and shift, glowing brighter with each passing second. A section of the ring opened, revealing a shimmering entryway bathed in golden light. "It's inviting us in," Dr. Arya Hahn murmured, her voice tinged with both awe and fear. Or it's a trap," muttered Sergeant Mira Khan, her hand resting on the grip of her plasma rifle. "Stay sharp," Elena said, her own nerves tightly controlled. The shuttle passed through the entryway, and the team found themselves in a vast, cavernous hangar. The walls were smooth and seamless, glowing faintly with the same golden light. Strange symbols lined the surfaces, their meaning inscrutable but clearly intentional. "Life support conditions are stable," Dr. Han reported, scanning the environment. "It's like they knew we'd come." The team disembarked cautiously, their boots echoing softly in the immense space. They moved in formation, their eyes scanning every shadow for signs of movement. Then, from the far end of the hangar, a figure emerged. It was humanoid, tall and elegant, its movements fluid and deliberate. The being's skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes glowed, faintly blue. It wore a flowing metallic robe that shimmered with every color of the spectrum, its surface shifting like liquid. The team froze, their breath caught in their throats. The being stopped a few meters away, its glowing eyes scanning them with an intensity that was both curious and unsettling. Then it spoke, its voice smooth and melodic, in perfect English. "Oh, you are from Earth," it said, the words sending a shiver down Alina's spine. She stepped forward, her weapon lowered but ready. "We are," she replied. "I'm Captain Elena Cross of the Voyager. Who are you?" He tilted its head, as if considering her question. "We are the remnants," it said finally. "Once, long ago, we were as you are. But the stars have changed us. But the stars have changed us." The words sent a wave of shock through the team. "And you're human?" Dr. Han asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The being gave a faint smile, one that was both familiar and alien. "We were once, but time has made us more. And less." Elena's heart raced as she processed the revelation. This was no first contact with an alien species. It was something far more profound, a meeting with humanity's lost kin.
The decision to explore the enigmatic ring weighed heavily on Elena as the shuttle's engines hummed softly around her. Every moment brought them closer to answers, yet the questions piling in her mind created a storm of uncertainty. The interior of the shuttle was tight but efficient, with a faint blue glow emanating from the control panels. Her team sat in tense silence, their expressions ranging from cautious optimism to outright wariness. Elena's gaze lingered on each of them briefly. Voss's analytical focus, Dr. Hand's scientific curiosity, and Sergeant Kane's sharp, unflinching vigilance. The entryway into the ring was alive with shifting patterns of golden light, rippling across its surface like water in a shallow pool. As the shuttle crossed the threshold, the light seemed to engulf them entirely. For a brief, disorienting moment, the view outside became a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, distorting the boundaries of perception. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the distortion vanished, replaced by a vast, cavernous chamber. "Docking protocol engaged," Voss announced, his hands steady on the controls. "Hangar is stable. Gravity and atmosphere are reading as Earth-like. Life support conditions nominal." "It's almost welcoming," Dr. Hand murmured, her voice tinged with awe as she leaned closer to the observation window. Elena didn't respond, her attention fixed on the landscape before them. The hangar was immense, its walls rising like cliffs into a ceiling obscured by faint glowing mist. The surfaces were sleek and metallic, but the patterns etched into them gave the impression of organic design, like veins carrying light instead of blood. The shuttle settled onto the hangar floor with a soft hiss. Elena unclasped her harness and rose, her boots thudding softly against the shuttle's floor. "Stay alert," she said, her voice firm but quiet. "We don't know what we're walking into." Kane was the first to move, her plasma rifle held at the ready. "Understood, Captain. If this is a trap, it's an elaborate one." Either outside was cool and faintly scented with something metallic, a reminder that they were no longer in the familiar confines of the Voyager. Elena led the team down the shuttle's ramp, her hand instinctively resting near her sidearm. The hangar was silent except for the faint hum of energy that seemed to resonate through the walls and floor. "It's incredible," Dr. Hand said, her voice reverent as her eyes scanned the surroundings. She activated a handheld device and began recording data. "This isn't just a structure, it's a marvel of engineering. The energy patterns alone suggest a level of technological advancement centuries beyond our own." Before Elena could respond, a ripple of motion caught her attention. From a shadowed corridor at the far end of the hangar, a figure emerged. The humanoid being moved with a fluid grace, its metallic robe catching and refracting the ambient light. The team tensed, weapons at the ready. But Elena raised a hand, signaling them to hold fire. A being stopped several meters away, its glowing blue eyes scanning them with an expression that could only be described as curiosity. Its features were unmistakably human-like, but there was an ethereal quality to it, as if it existed in a space just beyond the limits of comprehension. "So the other two of you saw that too," said Aramis, and spat out the words. "You are from Earth," the being said, its voice resonant and melodic, carrying a weight that silenced any thought of interruption. Elena stepped forward, her stance cautious but open. "We are. I'm Captain Elena Cross of the Voyager. Who are you?" The being tilted its head, as though contemplating how to respond. Finally, it spoke. "We are the remnants. Long ago we were as you are, but we have been shaped by the stars." The words sent a shiver down Elena's spine. The implications were staggering. This was not first contact with an alien species, but a connection to humanity's own distant past. "Golden World, are you saying you're human?" Dr. Hahn asked, stepping forward cautiously. Her voice trembled with excitement, her device now forgotten in her hand. "In essence, yes," the being replied, its glowing eyes settling on her. "Though time has changed us, our origins lie on the same cradle of life you call Earth. We left it long before your history began." The air seemed to grow heavier with the weight of the revelation. Elena's thoughts raced as she tried to process what she was hearing. Why? she asked finally, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. "Why did you leave Earth? What brought you here?" The being's gaze shifted, and for a moment, its expression was unreadable, a mixture of sorrow and something else, something deeper. "Our departure was born of necessity," it said. "Earth was stagnant. Our people had reached a threshold, unable to grow beyond the limitations imposed by the planet's resources and the divisions among us. We sought a new beginning, far from the conflicts and constraints of our birthplace." Dr. Hand's brow furrowed. "But how did you survive? The technology needed to leave Earth on that scale, to traverse the stars, none of it existed in the ancient past. How is it possible?" "It was not without sacrifice," the being admitted. "Generations lived and died aboard great ships, seeking a place where we could flourish. Along the way, we encountered challenges that forced us to adapt. We augmented ourselves, becoming something more than human, yet losing much of what we once were." Elena's eyes narrowed. "You evolved?" "In a sense," the being replied. "Our bodies and minds were reshaped by necessity and choice. We became beings capable of thriving in the vastness of the cosmos, but in doing so we lost much of the connection to our origins. We are no longer as you are, but we remember." Voss, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "If you've come so far, why remain here? Why build this ring?" The being turned its gaze to him. "This ring is a beacon. We built it to reach others like us, to guide those who would seek us. We have watched your kind from afar, waiting for the moment when you would cross the threshold and find us." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The team exchanged glances, each of them trying to reconcile the enormity of what they had just learned. "And now that we've found you?" Elena asked, her voice low. "What happens next?" The being's expression softened, its glowing eyes seeming to dim slightly. "That depends on you. You stand at a crossroads, as we once did. The choices you make will determine whether humanity flourishes or falls into ruin. Perhaps, together, we can find a new past, one that unites the past and the future." Elena felt the weight of the being's words settle on her shoulders. This encounter had transformed their mission from a journey of exploration into something far greater. The implications of the remnant's existence reached far beyond the Voyager, beyond Earth itself. Before she could respond, the being gestured toward the corridor behind it. "There is much for you to see. Come." The team hesitated briefly, but Elena nodded, signaling them to follow. As they moved deeper into the structure, the corridor expanded into a grand hall filled with a soft golden light. Strange, glowing symbols covered the walls, their meanings indecipherable yet strangely familiar. "This place," Dr. Hahn whispered, her voice filled with awe. "It's alive, isn't it? The energy patterns, they're not just mechanical or artificial. There's something organic about them." The being glanced back at her. "You are perceptive. This structure is not merely a creation, it is a symbiosis, a living machine grown as much as built." Kane, walking slightly behind, muttered under her breath, "This keeps getting weirder." Elena couldn't argue. The further they walked, the more she felt the lines between technology and biology blur. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, as if breathing, and the air carried a subtle hum that resonated deep within her chest. Finally, they reached a chamber that took their breath away. It was a vast, circular space with a domed ceiling that displayed a projection of the stars, shifting and shimmering as though alive. In the center of the room stood a massive crystalline structure, pulsing with light. "This is our memory," the being said, gesturing to the crystal. "A repository of our history, our knowledge, and our mistakes. Through it you may glimpse what we were and what we have become." Elena stepped closer, her hand instinctively reaching out toward the crystal. The light within it seemed to respond, swirling and shifting as if alive. She hesitated, her fingers hovering just above its surface. "This is only the beginning," the being said softly. "There is much to learn and much to decide." Evaded and despondent, proudly challenging the world. Elena closed her eyes briefly, drawing a deep breath. When she opened them, she placed her hand on the crystal, and the light enveloped her. The light from the crystalline structure consumed Elena's vision, flooding her senses with an overwhelming cascade of images, sounds, and emotions. She felt her body tense, her breath catching in her throat as the sheer magnitude of the experience overtook her. But just as the sensation threatened to become unbearable, it stabilized, and she found herself standing not in the domed chamber of the ring, but in a vast, open landscape. The air was warm, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth. Rolling hills stretched into the horizon, dotted with shimmering cities that seemed to rise organically from the ground. The structures were both monumental and elegant, their forms blending seamlessly with the natural world around them. Elena turned slowly, trying to take in the surreal beauty of the scene. It felt real, yet she knew it wasn't. It was a memory, a fragment of history preserved in the crystal. The voice, gentle and melodic, echoed around her. "This was our beginning. Before the stars, before the great journey, this was our home." Elena turned and saw a figure standing a short distance away. It was humanoid but faintly translucent, its form shimmering with a faint golden light. Unlike the being she had encountered in the ring, this figure was less solid, more like an impression left behind. She realized it was a projection, a representation of someone who had lived long ago. "Elena, are you hearing this?" Voss's voice crackled faintly in her ear. It was distant, as though coming from far away, but it reassured her that she was still connected to the present. "I am," she replied, though her focus remained on the projection. "I think I'm seeing their world, what it was like before they left Earth." The projection raised an arm, gesturing to the horizon. The image shifted, dissolving into a new scene. This time, Elena was standing in what appeared to be a council chamber. Dozens of individuals, all humanoid but with subtle differences in appearance, were seated in a circular formation. Their expressions ranged from determination to despair, and their voices overlapped in a heated debate. "The Earth we knew could no longer sustain us," the voice narrated. "Our advancements came at a cost. The resources of our home were depleted, the environment pushed beyond its limits. We faced a choice: remain and perish, or leave and endure." Elena watched as the council members argued, their words unintelligible but their emotions clear. Some pounded their fists on the table, their faces twisted in anger. Others gestured passionately, their voices rising in fervent pleas. Yet others sat silently, their eyes hollow with resignation. The scene shifted again, this time to a sprawling construction site. Massive ships, each the size of a small city, were being built by an army of workers and machines. Elena felt a pang of awe and sadness as she watched the vessels take shape. They were beautiful and powerful, but they also represented desperation, a race clinging to survival. "They left everything behind," Elena murmured. "Their history, their culture, their home." "Not everything," the voice corrected gently. "We carried with us the essence of who we were, though it was not enough to shield us from what lay ahead." The landscape shifted once more. Now Elena was aboard one of the great ships, its interior bustling with life. Families huddled together in communal spaces, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and fear. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly in laboratories, their hands steady despite the weight of their mission. Children played in narrow corridors, their laughter a fragile reminder of the life they had left behind. For a moment the scene filled Elena with a sense of hope. But then the light dimmed, and the ship's interior grew darker. Alarms blared, and people ran through the corridors in panic. Elena's heart clenched as she watched the chaos unfold. Fires broke out, systems failed, and the ship shuddered violently as though under attack. "Our journey was fraught with peril," the voice said, its tone heavy with sorrow. "The vastness of space was not kind to us. Many ships were lost to the void, their passengers consumed by the very stars they sought to reach. Those who survived were forever changed." Elena wanted to look away, but she couldn't. The images were too vivid, too raw. She saw survivors gathering in smaller groups, their faces gaunt and weary. Over time, their bodies began to change, subtle at first, then more pronounced. Their skin grew translucent, their limbs elongated, and their eyes glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. "We adapted," the voice continued. "To survive the inhospitable environments we encountered, we altered ourselves. What you see before you now is the result of countless generations of transformation. We are no longer as we were, but we have endured." The scene dissolved, and Elena found herself back in the domed chamber of the ring. The crystalline structure pulsed gently as though it had exhaled a great breath. Her team stood nearby, their faces pale and their expressions a mixture of awe and unease. The response to her departure was rapid and profound, and some members of the gathering had trouble regaining their feet. "You all saw it?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "We did," Dr. Han said, clutching her scanning device tightly. "It was overwhelming. Their history, their struggle, it's all preserved in that crystal. It's a living archive." Elena turned to the remnant, who stood silently at the edge of the chamber, its glowing eyes fixed on her. "Why show us this?" she asked. "Why now?" "Because your kind stands at a similar precipice," the being replied. "You have begun to reach for the stars, but the choices you make will determine whether your journey mirrors ours or diverges. We seek to guide you, to help you avoid the mistakes we made." Voss stepped forward, his expression skeptical. "And what's in it for you? Why would you go out of your way to help us?" The remnant regarded him with an inscrutable expression. "We do not seek reward. Our existence is a testament to the cost of isolation. By aiding you, we hope to find redemption for the paths we did not take." Dr. Han interjected, her voice trembling with excitement. "The technology you've developed, the way you've merged biology and machinery, it could revolutionize everything on Earth. Medicine, energy, exploration, the possibilities are endless." "Only if used wisely," the remnant cautioned. "Power without wisdom leads to destruction. That is a lesson we learned too late." Elena felt a deep weariness settle over her. The weight of the remnant's history, combined with the responsibility they now bore, was almost too much to bear. But she knew she couldn't falter. This was humanity's chance to forge a new path, one that honored both the past and the future. "We need time," she said finally. "Time to understand what you've shown us, to consider the implications for Earth." "Time is a luxury," the remnant replied, "but it is one we will grant you. Return to your ship, Captain. Share what you have learned. When you are ready, we will be waiting." Elena nodded, though her mind was already racing. The journey back to the Voyager was quiet, each member of the team lost in their own thoughts. As the shuttle docked and the airlock sealed behind them, Elena felt the weight of the remnant's gaze lingering on her. She stood on the bridge of the Voyager, staring out at the ring as it shimmered in the distance. The galaxy was vast, filled with both wonder and peril, and humanity's place within it was more uncertain than ever. But for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope, fragile but undeniable. "Where humans meet otherworldly humans," she murmured to herself. "The encounter changes everything. The question is, will we rise to the challenge?" No one had an answer, But Elena knew one thing for certain. Their story was only just beginning.
Oh,